In this next chapter, you're going to learn everything that I know about the Steadicam. And for those of you who don't know what a Steadicam is, it's a filming device that allows you to get smooth and steady shots where you normally wouldn't be able to. It acts as a balancing mechanism that will allow you to take your camera and move it around and remove shakes that would normally be there without it. I use the Steadicam in all of my filming when I'm shooting for the highlight video, and it's a great tool to have and to be able to master.
So the first thing we want to make sure when we're sitting at the Steadicam is that it's tightened onto the plate. So we usually have a screw here. Some Steadicams are a little bit different, but for this one we have a nice screw. We're just going to tighten it, use a coin of sorts, and make sure that it's on there real steady. Then we're going to place it on the Steadicam, and we're going to place it on the Steadicam, make sure it's attached. The Steadicam that you purchased will come with instructions. There are also several online tutorials. And then once it's on, depending on the lens that you use and the weight of your camera, your Steadicam will have a different balance. So after the body's placed on the Steadicam, we want to take the Steadicam, hold it like this, and then let it fall. And it should take about 2 seconds to fall to the bottom. So we got 1, 2, that's about right there. So if it's too heavy on top, then it'll take more than 2 seconds. And if it's too light, then we want to extend this or add more weight onto the bottom so that it falls faster. But ideally, it takes about 2 seconds to fall. So right here, we're at a good weight. Now we're gonna hold it like this and see that it's not steady. I'm gonna make some adjustments so that we're getting to a place where I can hold it like this and it's straightforward. So right there looks pretty good, where I can look into my viewfinder and see that it's not tilted right to the left, and it's also not slanted up or down. It's just steady all around. We're looking at our pitch and we're looking at our yaw and making sure that it's stabilized. Once we're at a point like that, then we can go like this, and we'll see that the camera still stays steady because it's balanced right on the bottom. If it were too heavy on the bottom, then when you go forward, it would likely lean forward because there's so much weight on the bottom. But since we're properly balanced, we can move around, jump up, and it stays steady the whole time. Now, depending on the lens that you're using, it may or may not affect the balance if you were to change the focal length, because as you can see, as you change the focal length, the lens comes out and it's going to change the weight dispersion. So if we move the lens out, it's going to lean a little bit forward, and we have to adjust constantly if we're changing the focal length. So when we're shooting with the Steadicam, we want to be intentional with our footwork. The idea here is to stabilize as many different parts of our body as possible. So when I'm doing a Steadicam move, I'm keeping my arms completely stable. I'm not moving around like this if I can avoid it, and I'm using my feet. If I'm doing a fast shot, I'm moving my feet like this, trying to keep my body giving it as little bounce as possible. So I'm going to be moving like this, just. And it's very stable. You can see the camera is not moving up and down. You're not jogging, you're not bouncing as much as possible, and it's a very stable maneuver. When we're going forward, same thing, just keeping our body stable. It's kind of like speed walking, so we're speed walking. When we can, we're gonna avoid moving our feet as well. So if we have a shot with a very slow, smooth move, we're gonna do what I like to call the rocking maneuver, where we're moving forward just by leaning. We're just rocking back and forth, and allows for a very smooth movement. Again, no movement in our arms, and we're just rocking. When we're doing the crane moves, we're going to be using our arms, and this takes some practice, but the move is basically holding your arms at full extension and then just bringing it down. And you're using your legs to bend as well to add to the movement. So rather than going like this and moving your arms all the way down, it helps if you're able to smooth it out with using your legs as well too. So we have the camera up here like this, and then we're coming down on it like that. So when we're turning the camera, we want to have our hands placed here. We want to make sure that our hand isn't touching this at all, because it'll mess up our balance if we're moving it like this. So our hand is placed down here so that it's not affecting this at all. And then if we're going to be panning the camera, then we're using this hand here and turning it like that. So often I'll be moving around the subject, and as I'm moving, I'm turning this as well so that the subject is in the center of the frame as we spin around the subject. The key here though is when you're using this hand, that it's not affecting your balance. You have it down here, not touching this, because it's going to mess up the balance, but you want it down here, and so it's just spinning around and you're using it to help with the stabilization.
So we're going to go over the basic shots that I use on the Steadicam during the wedding. Our first shot here is the tight move in, and you can see here that I'm using the rocking maneuver as I just move back and forth, getting a nice steady shot. I can do it also coming down from the ground, moving away, and it's very simple. Again, we're focusing on stabilizing the arms and just using the legs. The second shot we have is the tight orbit, and we're using the footwork that I had mentioned earlier, where we're keeping ourselves as steady as possible, moving around, using our left hand to pan so that we stay centered in on our subject, and we get this nice smoothing moving around shot. This is one of the more difficult shots, so it takes some practice. Focus on keeping your subject in the center and you'll get some money shots. The third shot we have here is the wide ground move up, and that's when we're moving in fast. We're doing the speed walking maneuver as we use our left hand to tilt the camera down towards the ground and then come up towards our subject. We can also do this from the ceiling, from the sky, if we have something in the sky that's visible, and this makes for a very dynamic shot, adds parallax from the ground, especially if we're using a wide angle lens. Again, here is the sky down shot where we're starting at the sky. In this particular shot, we have the trees above, and sometimes we'll even have clouds that allows us to have information that we're looking at from the top of the frame all the way to the bottom as we move in towards our subject. And we want to be moving fast because we're going to be playing all this in slow motion. And because it slows everything down, it's going to make it look smoother, but it's also going to make it look slower. And to really make it look epic, we need to be moving fairly fast. Here, shot number 5 is our wide dolly in. Now, when we're dollying in on a subject and there isn't a whole lot of symmetry in the shot, then we want to shoot this with the rule of thirds, meaning that we're putting our subject on either the right or left side. Here we have nose room that we want to give on the left because the subject is obviously looking towards one side of the frame, and so when we're moving in without symmetry, we're moving in on the third. Here is the wide jib down, and again, because there's no symmetry in the shot, we're putting our subject on the right third of the frame, and we're just moving down, bending our knees, getting a smooth shot. And we can use this to kind of fake a jib shot in all sorts of scenes. And then our last shot here, number 6, is the upside down, where we're just holding the Steadicam upside down. I'll use this to get shots of the groom walking sometimes, or flower petals on the ground. And it's a very creative shot that allows us to get a unique perspective. So this has been the Steadicam training. It can take a lot of practice, sometimes hitting the gym a little bit, strengthen up those arm muscles. You're going to be tired at first. It's going to take some time, some practice to build the strength into your muscle memory. And when you feel like you've got it down, go ahead and move on to the next chapter. See you there.